Welcome back, everyone, to Porch Reflections. So just sharing a little bit of how I'm doing and how life is here. The heat, oh my Lord, it's a warm morning this morning, and that's something for me, is this heat. And I know I may have shared some of this with some of you that we've shared personal conversations, but I was thinking about it this morning. The thing that is the hardest for me is the unexpected heat and the unexpected not being able to exercise or move my body the way that I want to move it in the outdoors, right? So I'm used to being able to just, if I choose to go exercise or move my body and be somewhere and use my physicalness outside, I can do that, right? There's not much holding me back, but this weather holds me back. So this heat, that I can't run or walk or ride my bike or do things like that as much because I get quite sick. Actually, I get very heat stroke-ish. I get very headachy and sick, and it wipes me out for a couple of days. So I can't predict whether I'm going to exercise or not, and it's really very much depending on the weather and the heat. So I'm learning how to manage that a little bit better, and really just calming myself that that's the way it is, and not in a passive way, but really truly this is the way it is, and so what am I going to do about that? And shifting my perspective, and then also shifting how I exercise and where I exercise more to an indoor environment. So that's just sort of a little bit about the life here. Still going on the construction, windows still here. Perfect, no problem. I'm going to read to you from my definition of the life force, because I realize some folks will just look at one of each of the Porch reflections. They may not see the whole series. So last Porch reflection was the ocean, which has a life force, and today we're going to do the roots of the trees. But let's give you the definition again of life force. Life force is the force or influence that gives something its vitality or strength. The spirit or energy that animates living creatures, the soul, the soul, right? So it's either a soul conversation or it's a life force conversation, but it's things that animate us. And I have had these forces animate myself, giving me more strength, more vitality, by their presence in my life, and with my choice to be in their presence more, and to really learn about their energy, their teaching, their medicine. So that's why we're here this time doing these Porch reflections. So the roots of the trees. So the roots of the trees go down to the earth, and they come up and they go down and they attach themselves. And you know, if I had you close your eyes right now and had you visualize the roots of the trees, each of you would probably feel that a little differently depending on the exposure that you've had to trees, and whether in your memory you're thinking about trees that remarkably just attach to a rock or go down deep or stand tall or all those things. So each of us close our eyes and just have a moment where you just quickly think of the roots of the trees, and then open your eyes. So in the very simplest form, we can each have a metaphor of why those roots are there and how they could teach us or guide us or give us a metaphor for our own lives, right? Digging our roots down. In yoga, I mean, it's said so very often, standing in mountain pose, put your roots down into the ground, or root down into the earth, as if you literally are creating a taproot down to the ground. So it's a downward force for a lot of human beings when we talk about it. And the force that I have come to acknowledge and to be learning from, this is the medicine for me, is that the roots of the trees invite us to have communication, right? They invite us to have communication. So the roots of the trees, and I'm not a big fan of not talking from the science per se, but it's also something that I do a lot. So that's sort of something I'm working on. But for me, my personality, I tend to read things or hear them from other people. I trust the source and I take it to be truth, and then I just don't hold on to the details. I don't even often read the final details. Whereas I'm married to someone who will read all the details and then come back to me and say, hey, I know you believe in this, but hey, look at this, look where the study was done, look at this and this and that. And I often use him to just validate for me, right? And then I can always still say, yeah, but it makes sense to me, and this is why it makes sense. And then how I prove it to be true is I take it into my life, right? So I take it into my life, and then I test it out: physical body, spiritual body, emotional body, intellectual body, intuitive body, all of those things. But then also in my finances, in my way that I take care of my car, the way that I cook my food, the way that I clean my house, the way that I talk on the telephone to the people I love. Like, all these things are my life, and I want these life forces, or these parts of science, these discoveries that we're having, to test out in my life, right? I want them to test out in my life. So that's sort of how I manage that. So that being said, today in this newsletter there will be some links to some science that can hold that space for you, because that's not really how I tend to discover things on my own. Okay, so but going back to where we were. Invitation for communication. Right? The roots of the trees go up, and we're discovering more and more, with more and more accuracy, what that communication is. Right? We know that a stand of trees will behave a very certain way if there is danger coming, whether it's fire, whether it's bugs, whether it's blight, whatever it is that's coming their way. There's a communication that goes, and it actually goes quite far outreaching, very, very far outreaching, that these trees will then adapt very quickly. And that adaptation will take care of the whole, right? Take care of the forest, take care of the stand of trees, or take care of the species of trees next to them, right? So it's this consciousness. I feel it as a consciousness. There is a communication. The science is discovering what all that is. And there's a relationship between the fungus, the bugs, the earth itself, the minerals. There's a science to what happens, and what happens up that tree, and then what the tree emits, and then what the other trees pick up, and what happens to them. Okay, so that's just putting it again in my language. So I bring this into the human experience. And in the human experience, I know that when I say something, and I emit from me something, it has an effect, right? It has an effect. That person's face may change. It may melt, or it might get tight. It might shrink their heart or open their heart. Their blood vessels may change. The amount of chemistry in their body may shift. I may send them into a memory, and they will go right back into a samskara. In yoga we talk about samskara, into a groove, a pattern of something that wasn't so pleasant. It could trickle into a memory and send them off into a beautiful memory, and beautiful dopamines are set off, and they feel good, and cortisol levels are shifted and changed. There's just so much beautiful science. But what I see is the look on the face, the tone of the skin, the smile, the tiny lines in the cheek changing, the shift in the body shape, all of it. And I have, and you have, and we all have this beautiful, I don't know what the word is, tool, mechanism of our eyes. Like, we can see, and if we really use our eyes to communicate and watch what's happening when something is emitted from us. It could even be how I walk into the room, right? How I stomp into the room could create an illicit response. I think back to my time as a child. Oh my gosh, absolutely. I knew when my dad walked in the room, my mom walked in the room, my brother and my sister, and it elicited in me a response, right, of how I was going to be, how I held myself, the conversation I was going to have next, what I did or did not share. All of these things are communication exchanges. And so, there's a big conversation going on right now about the volume of time on the cell phone. And I agree. And I often, and I'm going to do it more, talk to people about, can you put your phone down? Can you put your phone down and just talk to me? Or can you put your phone down? I can feel what that's doing to you, and I'd rather just have a conversation. Would you like to do that? I was traveling a couple weeks ago, and sitting on the plane next to people, let's talk. Sitting in a spa with somebody, waiting for our appointments, can we talk? And the answer could be no, and then I respect that, but let's give it a try. Can we use our voices? Can we talk? Because when they talk, it elicits a response in me, right? So it's not that it's self-serving, it's that it's expanding me. I want to be expanded, and I don't want to be an echo chamber. Although here I am talking to you on a phone versus being there, but that's why I'm doing it. I'm doing it so I can communicate with you, so that you and I can have conversations, even though you live in Oregon or North Carolina or Canada, or some of my relatives are even watching these. So, my cousins in Britain and places like that. Like, I want to communicate, and I want to elicit a response in you. So what I say is yours to then feel and experience what you're experiencing, right? Just like, so something comes in the environment, there's a fire, and that tree does something, and it sends its message down through the roots, and the roots do something, and then it does something, and that does something, and up it comes, and off it goes, and there's a change and an evolution. There's an evolution. I have long felt that as yogis, maybe one of our experiences is to feel our evolution, to feel ourselves evolving, and to know our evolution, and to know it so that we are making choices that align with that evolution, and to align ourselves more profoundly and not be so passive and in the, what's the word? That I am victim of the response of someone else. No, I'm in control. I'm taking responsibility. Right? I'm taking responsibility. So the roots of the trees, especially these last couple of months for me, have been talking to me about that sense of communication. Like, when I speak, what happens? And it's not that I have to mind all my words and make the perfect words. Just watch and notice what happens. And is that a positive response for that person to go through? Maybe that person does need to go into sorrow. Maybe they were right and ready, and the one thing I said, unknowing to me, triggered that, and they felt safe enough to feel that experience in my presence. But then I shift. As I see them go into sadness and sorrow, I can shift, right? And practicing with a spouse or a sibling or someone that you're close to is probably the safest way. Like I say to Peter, I'm just practicing. So much of my time when I goof up, I laugh and I say, well, I'm just practicing at this thing of life, or I'm just practicing this thing of communication. But watching him shift as I speak, I don't want to leave him anymore in a place where he doesn't feel held and supported, right? So I say something, he responds. And is there one more thing that I can look at, see, experience, and say, hey, I'm noticing this. Do you want to share that with me? Or am I correct in that? And give him more roots, right? Oh, I just see it, right? Roots of the trees going out and around him to hold and support him, right? Can I be the roots of the trees? Can I just support? Can I be a communication place? Can I pick things up and evolve with him? Can our marriage continue to evolve? And in that way, I'm not watching not to do things. I'm not trying to get it right or perfect. I'm just being me, and knowing that me has an influence. And that influence is now mine to watch and observe, and I can stay with it. I don't run away. I don't shut down. I don't say that's yours and not mine. I stay with it. So I am so inviting us to feel this energy of the roots of the trees, and to dive into the earth of it, if you will, because it's kind of dark and dank down there. We don't really know. Maybe we don't feel so comfortable, but those of us that garden, we love the soil, we love the earth, we love the smell of it, right? So I'm a gardener, and so the roots, right? Going into those roots and to really feel the invitation of communication, not just with our mouths, but know that this has a big part of it. How we present ourselves, how we posture ourselves, how we dress ourselves, how we use our eyes, our noses, our ears, all of our senses. How are we communicating? And then stay with the communicator, the one you're communicating with, and just be more perceptive. Can you be with it longer? Can you be with it deeper? Can you stay with it? Can we communicate? We practice at home, then we move out into our community, into our friends, then we move it into our workplace, then we move it out into community. I also love practicing these things with strangers. My checkout girls and guys are my friends. Like, I love saying things there and watching and seeing and interacting. Small little tiny exchange with a stranger, but there's a conversation that can happen and there's an exchange that can happen, and I invite that into my life all the time. Public transport is another great way. Jump on a bus, take a train, and next time you're flying, don't plug yourself into the movies and just watch 4 movies. Talk to the person, interact, at least for some of the time, right? So that's mine to send off to you. Blessings. I hope you're doing beautifully well and that your life is full of experiences. And again, dive on in and take a look at the roots of trees. And we'll see you back here next week.